Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. This is the Star Mother Kit Sacred Geometry Festival. As you know, I'm Dan Winter, fractalfield.com, and we have our experts today with us on the geometry. We have George Leoniak, who just made two amazing videos about the Star Mother and perfected charge collapse and doing the geometry. And also with us is Tufan Guven from Turkey, Geometric Models and the project there, who is the primary representative of the Star Mother Kit and many of the other beautiful sacred geometry modeling tools that he is helping facilitate sharing around the world. And so this is going to be a fun conversation. Specifically, the theme of this conversation is George is going to show us a short review again of the incredibly beautiful advancements he's made with the Star Mother Kit concepts and the geometry using his own tool, et cetera, and the work he's been doing, which Tufan and I find fabulous. And then Tufan and I are going to talk about how you would apply this in your science class and what the wave mechanics is and why that perfected charge collapse is the solution to everything, alchemy. So this is to connect the beauty of the geometry with the serious science behind it. That's where we're going. So George and Tufan.
Great. Tufan, do you want to, you could go ahead and introduce yourself because I'll probably follow into the slides right after after you present.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Tufan Guven. I'm a biontologist, which is a specific biophoton therapy modality that I practice. And I'm also a representative at geometricmodels.com, where we distributed learning tools, sacred geometry design tools. And here I would like to make a quick announcement. Geometric Models is going to have an addition to its educational tools very soon. The vector flexor, also known as Bucky's jitterbug, will soon be available at geometricmodels.com.
Wonderful.
You might have seen this many times from Dan's videos.
Perfected collapse.
Yes, exactly. And I would like to thank George for his beautiful contribution to the science here. And I would also like to thank Dan as being the pioneer of this fractal physics. And I would like to leave it to you guys. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Tufan.
Great. Thanks, Tufan.
I should have grabbed my vector flexor. We could have all had them on at the same time. It's just
pretend to be Bucky. Bucky.
Yeah, I'm George. It's grateful to be here. Great to connect with Dan. I started sending him some videos of the Star Mother Kit and kind of opened up the dialogue with him around this. So just really grateful for him and inviting Tufan into this. So great to meet both of you here in person. Yeah, so I run a little new geometry YouTube channel, so please check that out. And the videos that Dan mentioned, the Star Mother Kit model that I did a video on, as well as the Star Child form that I created. You're going to see these all in the slides coming up, are both videos there. And at Tufan's Geometric Models, both those videos are linked on that site there as well. So much appreciation, Tufan. But yeah, I have a real love and passion for sacred geometry, particularly through the drawings. I spend a lot of time seeing how the actual models are transposed to the 2D versions using, standard techniques that you use with the straight edge and compass, old school techniques, and then looking at the models and going back and forth and double checking to see if phi ratio is consistent. And I just had a major expansion with that. So much of this I'm going to share in these short slides. So yeah, I'll open that up and we'll go from there. Sound good? Anybody else want to add anything else there?
Great. So the idea is to see the visuals here and then think about what we're learning about perfected wave collapse, wave mechanics, electric fields, perfect charge implosion, that we're actually seeing implosion happen. That's the point, that it's sacred geometry because it's actually perfected wave mechanics of collapse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was really the inspirational question. I'll start sharing the screen here that Dan kind of asked of me, or asked me, that I kind of started to follow that trail to actually find out how can I kind of depict that perfected non-destructive wave collapse that he describes. And personally, I don't really have a strong background in the physics the way Dan and Tufan do, but I had this kind of intuitive geometric sense of how to maybe display this. And in those videos, I highly recommend in the first few minutes of that Star Child one, I actually show these next few images as if you're zooming in an infinite collapsing circular geometric pattern that you just go in and in infinitely with these patterns that I'm showing you here. So you got to check that out in the video. I won't show you in this section here. But these are some of the slides from those. And what I have here is the star mother. And, you know, we were just talking and joking a little bit about how many lines are actually in this when you look at it 2D. But if you have the 3D form in hand, which I'll show you in this slide here, you can unpack this whole geometric structure here to show the octahedron, the tetrahedron, the star tetra, the cube, the dodecahedron, and then the stellations of the dodeca and the great stellated dodeca, which is like Icasa dodeca stellation that Dan talks about. It's all contained within this geometric template that I call the golden circles seed of life, which includes golden ratio circles in these classic iconic patterns such as the seed of life or fruit of life. I just added golden ratio circles, and what that allowed me to do was draw the dodeca and icosahedron accurately, and that expanded my consciousness with those forms immensely to see how they're interrelated and interconnected. So I'm just going to blow through these slides pretty quickly, like I said in the videos, but these are the beautiful patterns. These are really new patterns. Like I haven't seen these represented in this way, but what you're looking at here is golden ratio circles. Each one of these circles as you go into the center, which, as I said, I can zoom into this infinitely and keep going. Into the center is golden ratio circles just collapsing in golden ratio circles that are kind of containing the 6 circles all the way down into the center. Now, I haven't showed you where the forms are in that yet, but I do this from 2 or 3 different views. So that's what I call the hexagonal view there that you're looking at, which is more the seed of life, the flower of life, if you're familiar with that hexagon view. But the pentagon view, this decagon view, basically, and that's where you would look at a 5 or 10-pointed star. That's the same type of implosion pattern from that view, okay? So this is what the circle pattern would look like there with those golden ratio circles. And once you put the forms over top of it, this is from the decagon view, what you get is Icasa, dodeca, Icasa, dodeca, Icasa, dodeca. I'm just not showing all those other forms and the stellations there because it gets a little busy, but you get the point that this is describing or visually depicting what Dan has been discussing with the sacred geometry. At least that's the way I see it. And Dan will talk to this in a little bit about how we're showing in these images, I believe, this collapsing implosion that he describes and how fundamental that is to all the physics that he brings to it. More from Dan on that.
We suggest the only possible 3D fractal, probably.
Yes, except for this little star child introduction here, which is really the same thing, but it brings in the rhombic dodecahedron. I have a few slides there as well. So it's really like their mother and child, like I joke around in the video on that one, is how they're really interconnected and the same structure, just looking at those compounds in different ways. But I just wanted to show you a little bit more of just the exploration because I have a whole nother video on the star polyhedra, just drawing them from different views. And I wanted to just show some of the work that I do with these golden circle templates, just to introduce you to the new geometry is, here's this small stellated dodecahedron, and this is it from 3 different views of what it looks like. So we're changing our perspective in our view of what these forms look like and doing them in all the versions, and they're 100% accurate to what the form would look like in this 2D version. Really so good. Here it is from the great stellated dodeca, and those are those 2, the main ones that Dan focuses on in the star mother model.
Just beautiful, really beautiful.
Oh, they're just amazing, and I love the circle templates, and there's so much more in them.
Well done.
Yeah, they're really special to me. So I'm really hoping to share those patterns with people, because to me it's a little bit of an evolution, because here's the classic flower of life type of pattern, and I talk about this in the video. There's other ways to work with this information, and that contains a certain amount of information, primarily focused what I've discovered on the octahedron, the hexahedron, the cube, and the tetrahedron. But my main driving curiosity in all this was like, where are the phi-based forms? Where's the icosahedron and dodecahedron? I had a little epiphany, that was like, well, this isn't containing phi, so they're not accurately represented in there. So I had to go on a journey to find out how to draw them accurately with phi proportion, and then make this expansive model that just grew out of that. So I got a lot of videos on that, but that's not my main intention for being here. But I want to let you know that that's some of my passion and interest, is sharing that component. So here is the, I mentioned this star child model, which I have some pictures of coming, but it's based on the rhombic dodecahedron. Let me just show you what that is. We have a compound of the icosahedron and dodecahedron where the two horizontal, vertical line and horizontal will meet, and that creates this form called the rhombic triacontahedron. This is it, drawn from these views. So it's a compound of the two. And just by building the forms, really, I discovered that Dan's model was basically within this triacontahedron pattern. And I drew it from all these different implosion patterns. These are them for the triacontahedron. And, through the discovery process, kind of came up with a whole other model that shows the same thing, that overlaps it, just with different forms. It's so interconnected that it's hard to pull out which piece is which, but these were the main forms that kind of helped with this rhombic triacontahedron. And I would say these are the forms right here. I built them all.
George, would you put that slide number 11 up again?
This triacontahedron one?
Yes. Just to suggest a way to visualize this that might be appropriate. If we were visualizing, that famous film, I'll show it in a little while maybe, where we have a soap bubble that's collapsing into a dodeca, so that it's literally a dodecahedron as a soap bubble collapsing. Well, if you visualize the soap bubble collapsing between a dodeca and a cosa, that soap bubble halfway between that collapse between dodeca and cosa would be, in effect, the rhombic tricontra, I believe, actually. So it's sort of like halfway between in the charge collapse process might be one way to talk about that. And there's probably some quantum mechanics, or at least wave mechanical way to talk about that, which maybe we'll do a bit shortly. But you'll see that it's describing a trajectory of charge collapse. Anyway, the soap bubble vision might help later.
No, absolutely. That's exactly what is, I believe, happening there. And I'm trying to find, I hope I have the slide in here, that maybe I don't, but it is actually showing that that point in the, oh, here it is. Yes, it's right at this one. This is what Dan, I believe, was describing there. Is you see there's this one circle that's right in the middle.
Yeah.
This black one. So you've got icosa, dodeca, and then, because these are the circles that are connected to those two forms, then we skip one right here, and that's this phase between the icosa and dodeca, which would be the tricontahedron, because essentially you have a tricontahedron at every single one of these steps. But because that stellation of the icosa is really a big stellation, it kind of just jumps one circle, and I highlighted that one right there.
Yeah, so it's like halfway in the charge collapse. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what I was trying to say. If we start with the same dodeca right here, which would be in this one and this one, well, then here's the internal framework. We just skipped one as we finally make it down to this one here. So we're saying the same thing on that. And this is how it's displayed, at least the way I discovered with the geometric pattern here of the artistic expression of that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's very cool. So these are the models, and this is now looking at it top down. Just check the video. This was a fun little slide for me to put mother and child together there, because they are one and the same. So there's the two models, Dan's model here, the star mother, star child. So, I'm not attached to which one is which. They're both the same, really, but they're just different ways to look at the same thing, which I think is really cool. This is a little bit more explanation, but it's just describing how the forms are related internally and how they're nested in inside of one another. That would just be infinitely, as I break this thing together, which looks like just one easy geometric design to draw. Like, this is very simple to draw once you know the technique. But if you pulled out every piece of that as it's particularly related to a geometric form, well, these are the actual forms that are within that. And these are them right here as we kind of go down to show how these forms relate in sharing vertices on the inside. So that's definitely a slide that could be studied a little bit more. The only last piece, a few slides that I have here, well, I guess there's a few more, and I hope I'm going okay with time for you guys, is just that one form that really particularly interested me in this whole process is this one right here that I'm showing on the slide as well. This is a stellation of the triacontahedron, the small stellation of it. And it had this particular shape, this cone shape on the end that actually really showed this kind of wave collapse that Dan's going to talk about. Like this piece right here, this whole little cool thing that I'm holding up is just one of these points. And the cool thing is that it's not just going out, it's actually the inside, it's going into the center of this. And if you connect the dots here, it would be a dodecahedron, including the in-between form there as well. So there's a little compound of a few forms here, but it's so cool that the inside is the outside, and I could just flip that around. I could basically put this one inside this one, and it would just be essentially the same thing. It's going in and out at the same time. So it's just a beautiful form, quite a discovery of how that related this. And Dan's work with the implosion model and building stuff like this, which is just one piece of a whole gigantic form. Like this is just in the model, you just plug it in. It was just really kind of awesome to hold in hand, you know? So I think it really highlights the pine cone kissing noses as Dan describes.
And the perfect vortex cone related to the 60-degree concept, visualize Schauberger trying to make the perfect vortex, you see, and the wave mechanics that actually lead to the center of hydrogen. It's a very useful construction. I like it. Perfect.
Yeah, it's so neat because it really, you could follow the red struts on this all the way around, like just pick up one of them and it will just keep going. You got it. I have to end it at some point because I don't have the right zone tools, but it really is a spiral that goes around that. And I can just keep moving this out.
If the red parts got really small, you could go right up to the Planck threshold.
I think that's what would happen, exactly. I'd have to have a really small little building. That geometric models, Tufan, you got to work on that.
Right.
You know, speaking of that, at some point you and Tufan could have a fun conversation about offering a model for the public that represented the star child or some piece of the rhombic triconta as well. So it'd be a fun conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely great to explore because there's such cool models that I think getting people's hands on them, they really start to see this and it makes sense, just like the drawings do too. To me, they're interlocked, and the beauty of what I'm sharing here is showing how they are now a very unified connection between the two. This is just another view of what I just showed you. It's just from the pentagon view, looking down at that geometry from both sides. This is looking at the point. Flipped around, this is now looking down at the pentagon face. Beautiful. And there's the geometry of that.
Almost meditative.
Oh yes, totally. Holding that in hand, I have it hanging up on the ceiling there, and I like to stand underneath it. I could imagine if this was out of a non-plastic item like a nice brass or copper wire, it would be quite a charge in that.
Actually, it would be very electrical. In fact, high gold would be good, but
yeah, definitely. So the only other thing, I just dropped these in here because I know Dan's work talks a lot about the DNA as well. I'm just kind of floundering around here a little bit, just making my own connections. This little squiggly line here is actually based on a golden spiral, but from a different view. Like I worked on the geometry of these two, and I like to overlay them because these are such strong visuals. If this was looking top down, this would be a vortex through the center. This is what it would look like from the side, kind of collapsing into the middle. Not super scientific on these, but just visuals that I like to.
But that's what we did when we put the golden spiral on the 60-degree cone and revolved to get the grail animation. That's how we started.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty basic here, but your animations are really the inspiration for me to even start to explore this. You know, and this is a little more static, but it's aiming at the same concept. And of course, you know, this is us too, you know, it's the way I feel about it, you know, and this is what I love about Dan's work too, is how it brings in the mechanics of bliss and how it relates to the human body and the transformations that happen there. So, you know, I always like to visualize and see how those little spirals, the caduceus kind of lines up through our energy centers. You're just having fun here. And I do this in a few different ways, you know, and show the phi proportion in the human body. This is all things you can just pause and check out if you'd like. And then I just did it with the rhombic tricontahedron because I realized I could just do the same thing and do the same fun little thing with the stacked tricontahedron, which is the, you know, the star child version of it. And I guess just one more slide here. The last thing is just, I want to just kind of reiterate for viewers, my interest and passion with this was really to incorporate the phi ratio into the flower of life and basically create some new patterns that have emerged from that, which are a lot of circles now with phi circles. On this one, we got the seed of life pattern, which I was showing you many of the designs. And this one is just like this implosion model that I call it, the implosion diagram based on the golden ratio circles, really came about through my exploration of this pattern incorporating phi. So that's about all I have. I hope everybody really enjoyed that quick visuals. A lot of other videos I've done, so please check that out. And I'm sure Dan and Tufan will have more to share on this, and I'll probably be absorbing silently on the sidelines here to expand my knowledge and understanding of what it is I'm actually doing here. So
one quick note on that, on your slide here, the bottom circular geometry also very much looks like the frequency map to Dan's discovery of hydrogen radii tuned to Planck.
This one here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, these are golden ratio circles. So if it's based on golden ratio, each of these are going to be those
right.
Jumps.
Yeah, and the way hydrogen is assembled. And the other thing that really kind of started George here too was the fact that the star mother, because the tetracube is inside the dodecacosa, there is a hex view and a pent view of the same structure and the way they embed within each other. And then later we showed in wave mechanics that the hex view creates octave harmonics, which are max destructive interference, perfect for crystallization and stabilization. And the pent view creates golden ratio mechanics, which we now know is the wave mechanics of perfected constructive wave interference, and therefore implosion, non-destructive charge collapse, and we're going to talk about more now.
Great. Well, I'll stop the share there, and I'm sure you can just revisit and connect this to the forms if we want, or to the drawings I've done here. But if you want to revisit them, I can always pop them back up too. Yeah. Well, that was a lot of fun. Thanks for letting me share all that here.
Oops, sorry.
No worries, Dan.
And we should say the idea now is that we've seen what George has done, extending the beauty of these ideas and working very diligently, is to try to extend that conversation now where you bring this to a science class and really understand wave mechanics, charge collapse, and therefore negentropy and implosion. Before we do that, Tufan, do you want to maybe I'm going to share about 10 slides, but do you want to go first, Tufan?
Whichever, I'm fine. If you want, you can go first. Or
okay, all right. Well, so I prepared just a few slides. We wanted to make the point, which was that when people get enthused about the geometry, but they can get kind of lost in woo-woo land unless they see the connection to wave mechanics. So we always say, to avoid woo-woo land, it's not that there's anything wrong with being fascinated with geometry, and it is beautifully visual, and it's meditative, and it is spiritual, but to be able to discriminate between numerology and pattern recognition, which is in itself useful, versus physics, the day that you make that discrimination is the day you predict what a wave is going to do. When you predicted what a wave is going to do using your geometry, then it has turned from beauty, which is in itself wonderful, into pure science, pure physics, and pure principle. So that's the idea. Then if we really apply this to wave mechanics, we have the keys to the universe. So yes, I've taken a few slides now in which we want to make the point. I'm going to hit share screen, that what you've seen, which has tremendous beauty, directly applies then to the pure wave mechanics of implosion. Now I need to find my share screen, whiteboard, iPhone, Messenger, Telegram. I lost my screen. Just one moment here. Bear with me.
No worries.
So let's see. My keynote is here. I should be able to share screen. Here it is. Okay. Longitudinal compressed. Good. Okay. Sorry for that. Okay. And we're going to start with slide number 51. Bring that up. So you've all seen these slides before, and this is just
choosing compassion carefully aligns the
shows the 3D view of that compression.
So that
Yeah, we got a little background noise going on there.
causes a perfect embedding.
I'm sorry. There's a there's an audio behind that video. But this is just another view of what George just showed, that the side view of the perfected golden spiral on the perfected 60-degree cone of implosion that connects dodecacosa is literally a perfected caduceus, which in physics we say now is what the concept of phase conjugation actually means. And you've all seen the animations we did of this based on the revolving that, well, you get the cup within the cup and the grail, and even the swastika we see, which is a sacred symbol, aside from the the negative implications. The sacred symbol of the swastika is part of the physics of charge collapse. That's where we're going with this, that we have been worshiping literally spiritually the physics of charge implosion, perfected charge collapse, as in fact, I would contend that Einstein, literally, when Einstein announced that he was clear, the solution to his unified field was literally infinite non-destructive charge collapse. So Einstein too, in my view, was religiously worshiping non-destructive charge collapse or implosion. And here you've all seen the slide. Here's the golden ratio as it exists in the famous Mandelbrot fractal. And again, someday maybe you'd enjoy making some animations like this, where you take it into electric image, revolve a sine wave, multiply by golden ratio. And so 3D modeling tools might be a next step for you, George. You could have a lot of fun. I had this kind of fun when I was about 30 years old. I was doing this, and I was using electric image in Form Z at that time. So here we're just making the point how many different physicists today, Andre Linde and others, El Nashi, are agreeing that fractality is very likely the cause of gravity. So the only question is, if fractality is agreed to be the cause of gravity already by conventional physics, then what is a fractal electric field? And that's what we're suggesting is this answer. And El Nashi's famous work on golden ratio in physics. And here is the geometry. You're seeing how this top-down view of the pent within pent of implosion allows waves to add and multiply recursively, constructively, not just their wavelength and wave velocity. And I know I sound like a broken record because I've said that too many times, but this is what Tufan just kindly mentioned, the radii of hydrogen based on golden ratio, which is a kind of proof that indeed this has meaning for physics. And that's where the main part of this little presentation is if you could understand the Star Mother kit, I mean, non-destructive charge collapse, then not only could you know why an object falls to the ground, because that implosion of charge accelerates that charge toward center, and that acceleration of charge toward fractal symmetry center caused by recursive golden ratio, that acceleration of charge is named in physics the gravity. And acceleration is indiscriminable from gravity, actually, that's the point. And so you've all seen these pictures before. Oh yeah, but actually we actually do have the soap bubble animation here. So yeah, so if this soap bubble was collapsing between the dodeca and the cosa, would it in fact halfway between be a rhombic triconta? See if you can visualize that, as in literally halfway in the phase between. And this is this famous picture from the cover of Nature magazine and New Scientist, saying that the arrangement of masses in the universe is literally dodecahedral. That tells you something, because masses need to be arranged dodecahedral to stabilize gravity and the negentropy that stabilizes centripetal force. And this is the picture again. You see that if we put sine waves on that pentacle, and you can see how they add and multiply recursively. And remember, they're adding and multiplying not just their wavelength and wave velocity, but they're adding and multiplying recursively, constructively, because of golden ratio, their phase velocity. And it's that adding and multiplying phase velocities down that cone that turns only that geometry of compression into acceleration of charge towards center, named gravity, and the only source of negentropy, self-organization. Because as they implode at the Planck threshold, they're converted into longitudinal interferometry, and therefore that's the physics of gravity, ways of Tom Bearden, as proven by equation. And so you've all seen these physics, these papers before, that Kepler's model of the solar system based on the Platonic nesting literally turned out to be correct. It is the way that gravity holds the solar system together, because non-destructive charge collapse caused by Platonic nesting is what stabilizes gravity and therefore the solar system. And so we talked about this one too, the Anu, the 5 spins, 7 spins. So 5 spins inside, 7 spins outside, perfected slip knot, human heart, heart of hydrogen, heart of the sun, as seen correctly by the clairvoyants in occult chemistry, and later justified in physics, predicting subatomic structures, psi perception quarks by Phillips. So the 7 spins, 5 spins perfected slip knot of Anu was actually in effect a drawing of the star mother, because the 7 spins is tetracubic and the 5 spins is the 5/10 symmetries of dodecacosa. So the main thing I really wanted to try to share with you today is, what I'd like to say today is that your chemistry teacher could not teach you what holds the atomic table together without using the star mother kit. That's the point I would like to make today. Your chemistry teacher must have a star mother kit for the following reason, okay? And here's the following reason. That, first of all, notice that this is from Fusion magazine, the famous and 21st century Lawrence Hecht, in which they showed not only is the arrangement of the hadrons of the nucleus of the entire atomic table, the chemist Moon at University of Chicago spent his life on this, and this is the atomic nuclear hadron, neutrons and protons, geometry, nesting in the nucleus, tetracube octaecosa. That's the nucleus of the entire atomic table. Looks like this. Hello. Okay, now let's go to the electron shells. Oh, SPDF, the S suborbital is a torus. Okay, that's not a surprise, 2 teardrops. Remember, SPDF, 1, 3, 5, 7 vortex pair, 2, 6, 10, 14 electrons, and then you're done. That's the whole atomic table. So now the S suborbital is a torus, obviously a teardrop. The pi suborbital, everybody knows, is a tetracube. Okay, 3 vortex pair, 6 vortex, 6 electrons. And the DF suborbitals, 5, 7 vortex pair, 10, 14 electrons, 10, 14 vortex, is dodecaecosa. Armand Weiler spent a whole half a lifetime on the 7-axis symmetry, the 7-5 spin symmetry pairs of the icosa. That's Armand Weiler's work. So clearly now, here's the electron shells. Oh, tetracube dodecaecosa. And what is the nucleus? Oh, tetracube dodecaecosa. So what is the glue that holds the atomic table together? Is the way in which tetracube dodecaecosa embed within one another. That is what holds the atomic table together. And by the way, you cannot put a tetracube inside a dodecaecosa without using golden ratio, because it don't fit. So what I'm saying to you is, let's have your chemistry teacher allow you to get visual, which will then make you psychokinetic, hint, magic, and give you leverage if you can visualize, not just abstractly, but mechanically, what is holding the atomic table together, which is the Star Mother kit. So you know, this is a little plug for every chemistry teacher on this planet needs a Star Mother kit, because non-destructive charge collapse, platonic nesting, is what's holding the atomic table together. And so then when the famous clairvoyants, Leadbeater and Besant in occult chemistry, and later in psi perception quarks, in fact, made the drawings of what they saw clairvoyantly, what, 20 to 50 years before subatomic particle physics. And then in psi perception of quarks by Phillips, our friend from UK, he proved that the clairvoyants had seen subatomic structure, 3 ANU per quark, before physics figured it out. So those clairvoyants were right. Hello. And this is their drawing of how the atomic table is glued together. Oh, tetracube dodecaecosa. Hello. So order your chemistry teacher a Star Mother kit and do your school a favor. And so this is the picture of the charge collapse, and we've seen that before. And then just to share again what you've all seen before, that, but if you do a statistical averaging of what waves do when they interfere by ratio, at golden ratio gets max constructive interference, and at octave you get max destructive interference, which is perfect for isolating charge and crystallizing and stabilizing. So it isn't that the hex is bad, the pent is good. No, it's that they have different functions. The pent is charge collapse, charge implosion. The hex is charge stabilization, good for snowflakes. And when witches need to put a hex on you, they use that too. So, all right, so you've all seen that before. So that's actually the end of this section. Let's stop the screen share. So not only did we have instructions for your chemistry teacher, we have instructions for your local witch. I mean, oh, I'm not going to wiggle my nose now. I'll do that later. But but you see that non-destructive charge collapse creates a centripetal force, which is not just centripetal, but it is negentropic, self-organizing, because as the implosion converges to the Planck threshold, the waves are sorted into phase, and only that which fits the implosion fits in phase can pass through that center. Perfect example is the physics of dying successfully. That if you are, for example, angry at death, 1/7 is a wave center will not compress well and cannot implode and cannot go through center and cannot propagate out into the longitudinal array, which is gravity waves and the collective unconscious and the communion of saints. So if you, and also the physics of lucid dreaming and astral travel and remote viewing. So if you can't get squeezed coherently through Planck, you can't propagate. And that is a test. In psychological terms, it's a test for pure intention. And in therapy, they call the therapeutic process the collapse process. Hello. So it is true that, you know, if suddenly in family constellation therapy, you suddenly have an intuition that you now understand the intent of everyone. Somebody hurt somebody who hurt somebody who's hurt. But now if we deeply collapse everyone's intention and we all become one because we consume perspective and we see each other's point of view, Putin, suddenly we can feel their feelings as if they're ours. And then the Sufi story, I am here because of you and you are here because of me. So perfected collapse is not just the solution and cause of alchemy and gravity and bliss and successful death and urban design and the history of computers. It's also how to gain immortality and how to achieve compassion. So there's lots of reasons why we need to understand perfected charge collapse. And we're doing tribute in this video to George and Tufan for their role in these things. So comments, Tufan, or as you like.
Oh, thanks, Dan. That was beautiful. Tufan, go ahead if you like.
Sure. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, George.
One thing, though, I would say, just to add to that, Dan, is that every geometry teacher in schools also needs a Star Mother kit, besides the chemistry teacher. So they need the geometry teachers. Basically, the whole school needs just a Star Mother kit.
Maybe the dance teacher needs one.
School and in every classroom.
Yeah, the dance teacher needs one too. Good point. The Sufi.
Okay, thanks, Tufan. Go ahead.
All right, I'm sharing my screen now.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can do that.
Yeah, I had trouble sharing my screen. The first time it didn't show my keynote. Oh, there you got it.
You look like you're about to be on there in a sec.
Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Looking nice.
Good. So what I want to cover is the connection between geometry and the physics of waves to make it easier to understand, to give some practical examples. And this box or rectangular box is called a Stradivarius chamber, Stradivarius phi chamber.
Oh.
So this was originally designed by Stradivarius in 1917, I guess, the Italian musician who is famous for his instrument productions like violins and cellos based on phi proportions. So he noticed that once you produce those instruments based on phi, you don't have unwanted standing waves. So after that concept, the leading hi-fi companies around the world right now, they are all constructing music halls or musician studios or rooms based on phi ratio. So what they do is they, while building the room or while structuring it, if you can arrange at least 2 dimensions of the room based on phi ratio to 1.618, you basically don't get the unwanted standing waves. It's simply when you listen to a music inside the room and walk around inside the room, and you will notice that at specific points, you will hear the bass or the high frequencies in an increased volume. So what happens in those 5 chambers is that you get the optimum sound experience in those 5 chambers. So this is a very practical example from the physics of waves. And we know that sound wave is also a longitudinal wave. And we have all sorts of waves, but this is an instructive example to understand how waves agree with each other in specific proportions to give you the optimum experience. Now, this is an example from the sound industry.
That's so gorgeous, Tufan. Can I do just a 2-second, my favorite Stradivarius story?
Go ahead.
So the Stradivarius movie, Red Violin. So if you apply that sound wave in golden ratio constructive interference, then the secret always was there was sacred gemstones in the paint. But actually, his lover died, and the blood was in the paint, and the varnish is piezoelectric. And so the reason your hair stands up when they play the Stradivarius is because that same constructive phonon standing wave is then piezoelectrically oscillating in the paint. And if actually, in this case, the blood is the famous story, that everyone remembered the emotion of his wife who had died in childbirth, and that blood was in paint, which is a crystal. So actually, that coherent sound standing wave is then coupled to the piezoelectric standing wave of the coating on the Stradivarius, the mystery of what makes it worth $1 million.
So this is just one small clue among millions to understand why ancient civilizations built their temples and sacred spaces based on 5 proportions. Now, these 2 building plans belong to the top one is the Temple of Apollo in Didim, Turkey, and the bottom one is the famous Parthenon in Athens. So you will notice the building plans, the rectangles are based on 5 proportions. So the longer side is 5 squared times the shorter side. And this is the same when we look at the dodecahedron, because the most bigger rectangles in a dodecahedron, which are these connection points, you can see my fingers here, and those 2 points, they will give you the rectangle. It's basically dodecahedron is composed of I think multiple edges, and each edge has a parallel on the opposite side, and you can have this phi rectangle. This is a longer phi rectangle, so the longer side is phi squared times the shorter side, and this is the same building plan of the temples as well. So we can see very interesting connections between all those geometries, and why they were applying this science in the temples is that when you have a ritual or a ceremony or a sacred ritual inside, you can connect easily with the higher dimensions, because we know from the molecular physics that golden ratio is the only solution for maximum zero electrical resistance and maximum charge. I forgot the term for that, dielectricity, the charge flow between the atoms. So I think what they call is, I'll get back to that in a minute when I remember. So we see that in different settlements. This is the Stonehenge, and the Science News magazine also put this in his cover, that it talks about super atoms. So these super atoms, which have the quality of superconductivity, this was a term that I forgot, and zero electrical resistance, they all have a commonality. And the common things that, the common quality that they share among those molecular arrangement is that they all have a golden ratio molecular distribution arrangement, either a icosahedron or a dodecahedron. That's why the electricity can move without disturbance. That's what's called superconductivity. That's why they were building the temples based on golden ratio. to connect much easily to the other dimensions as well. And this is another clue to the world's energy grid, which is dodecaecosa. More information available at goldemin.info/Bueller. And this is also the precise geometric model of the origins of biologic negentropy and radii of hydrogen in relation to Planck radius core at goldemin.info/goldenproof, and the generalized geometry of all phase conjugation and fusion and perfected fractality. So these were the things that I wanted to touch upon.
I love that slide number 32 there about the atom. That also brings in this concept that the superatom leads to this idea, which is very fashionable in physics today, called perfected entanglement. Entanglement, they're talking about enabling wormholes, action at a distance, Einstein-Rosen bridge. And so in this perfected connectivity, the fashionable word for that today is obviously perfected entanglement, which is related to how superatoms nest. And if we see that the concept of perfect entanglement leads perfectly to the concept of perfect embedding and therefore phase conjugation, which produces a longitudinal wave, which goes down that wormhole and does enable action at a distance. So entanglement is implied in the superatom idea. I just thought it's a fun, nice connection too. Beautiful slideshow, Tufan. Really, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I also have explored the slide 33 with some other videos based on something I call the geohedron videos. But yeah, I explored a lot of that and looking at the icosa dodecahedron connection to that layout of the Earth grid. So yeah, it's just fascinating to see how it all links together at all those multiple levels, from the same structure showing up around the Earth to the geometric atom in the two slides back to back. So thank you.
And while we're looking at that, that then implies what Tesla was attempting, which was global wire powerless distribution without wires, was in fact to link the longitudinal wave nodes, the same dodecaecosa which Bruce Cathy showed affected nuclear critical mass, that what those nodes are is in fact where the longitudinal waves cross and exchange compression again, where the cones kiss noses. And so that's the point of exchange between longitudinal and transverse electromagnetics, the place of sacred space, and therefore where heat again is created. Because the longitudinal waves can pass through about anything, but where it goes to another compression point, that's where it does the sharing. That's why those were the sites where telepathy was possible from Kozyrev and what calls song lines and dreaming tracks. So that is literally a longitudinal array perfected.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Those slides are really great, Tufan. I appreciate the three
Thanks.
levels that we all brought to this.
Yeah.
Thank you. This one is from the our geometric models poster behind me. They can find that at geometricmodels.com.
Okay.
The poster's there. Thank you. Thank you, Tufan. So the storal to the mori of today's conversation, if we may say, is it is more than romance and the concept of pure beauty that attracts your children to sacred geometry and perfect nesting in the Star Mother. It is the core pure principle behind so much of physics, that if we understood perfected charge collapse, we'd understand how anything in the universe can become self-organizing or negentropic. And that applies not just to atoms and why Gaia is apparently negentropic self-organizing. The Schumann harmonic cascades are golden ratio to Planck. But it also applies to the physics of peacemaking, for example, very relevant to today's conversation, that the concept of peacemaking is actually how waves stabilize. And we've actually applied the whole curriculum of sacred geometry to the concept of peacemaking, peaceuniversity.net. And you see that, in fact, when the magnetic lines between villages are restored, not only does the underground water reappear because it's permissive distribution, but also village A and village B can then again begin to exchange feeling. So repairing the magnetic lines into the dodecaecosa grid is measurably and proven to be peacemaking. This is Phil Callahan's work, what we feature at peaceuniversity.net. So making the dodecaecosa work, you restore the rose-like fractality of your bed, map, the magnetic map of your bed and your house, your backyard, and then the magnetic map of your city. And Prague's magnetic map is a rose, and they attract. That really applies to this idea of peacemaking, where we all achieve the same convergence point together. So, was that our happily ever after for the day?
It
Wow,
was.
that was really beautiful. Thank you, Dan. That's fantastic to bring that last piece in. Yeah, and I'd like to think that the geometry of the models as descripted matches that blending of the science and the spirituality with the artistic expression, and that all just dovetails beautifully into the evolution of our consciousness and the peace that could bring, and joy and health and happiness to all of us. So appreciate that. Much love, Dan.
Exactly.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys. Been a blessing.
Happily ever after. Thank you. Peace, everybody.
Thank
See ya.
you.
Blessings, blessings.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.